All right, let us begin our annual meeting with prayer. Gracious and loving God, we gather here as your people, knit by your Spirit, called into community by your boundless love. We give thanks for this church, for the ways it has been a place of worship and fellowship and service, a beacon of your presence in Sun River and beyond. We give you thanks for the hands and the hearts that have shaped our shared ministry, and we are deeply grateful. As we look back on the year that has passed, we ask for eyes to see your fingerprints in both the moments of joy and the seasons of challenge. For the ways you have provided and guided and sustained us, we say thank you. As we turn our hearts toward the year ahead, we ask for wisdom and courage. Help us to discern your will for our community, to dream boldly, and to trust that you will lead us forward step by step. May all we do bring glory to you and reflect the love of Christ to one another and the world. Be present with us now in this meeting, and let our words be thoughtful, our decisions faithful, and our hearts open to your guidance. Grant us a spirit of unity and hope as we work together to serve you and to love one another well. In the name of Jesus Christ, the head of this church, we pray. Amen.
Welcome to all of you, and thank you for attending our meeting this fine Sunday. One of the feedback things that we received last year after our annual meeting was, why don't we have a slideshow that presents what's inside both the annual report and also items for business. So in front of you is the agenda. A few words prior to us starting the actual agenda. It's again been a very busy year for SCF in 2024. We've had the hiring of Pastor Callie. We've had the retirement of Pastor Rob. We've continued improvements of our church building and opening the building to usage by our community. We've continued SCF's outreach to those in need in Deschutes County and throughout the world. We also have a new neighbor, the dog park. As you might remember, it was a significant item of discussion last year. I would also like to, as the now soon retiring president of the managing board, thank many people for the successes that we've experienced, not only this year, but in the past. The managing board, whom I've had the privilege to work with these past 6 years, it's been a blessing. And I'd like all the managing board to stand up and be recognized, and included in that, Joan and Joe. Please stand up. As you can see, they're outfitted in their new hoodies. There is also, in addition to the hoodie, there's also t-shirts available. So anyone that's interested, Tom Head is the person in charge, and we would welcome anyone and everyone that would like to have one. Also, I'd like to recognize the Transition and Search Committee, who, under the leadership of Jenny Long, toiled over 1.5 years to bring Pastor Callie to us. Would you please all stand? Thank you. And to the many ministries, committees, groups, volunteers, too many to stand because I think it'll be nearly the entire group, who tirelessly provide administration and outreach to hundreds of local and distant individuals and groups that are in need. I also like to extend a special thank you to those who assist in the details and operation of our church and worship. These people I'd like to have stand. Joan Lewis, Wade Watson. The Altar Guild. Altar Guild, please. Thank you. Randy Heiss and Ryan Lewis. Thank you for your many times and talents in the devotion to getting the job done. And now a little, I guess, personal story. When Sharon and I arrived here 10 years ago, it wasn't after a considerable amount of consternation in leaving our church in Federal Way, Washington. We'd been there for 27 years. But now we found SCF, and it's special. We are now home. On to the agenda. And Barb Purcell.
Before I go into my part, let's see, what is my part? Year in review. There are just some thank yous that I too need to express from this congregation and the managing board. And I'm going to start with Gene, because he's really upset he doesn't have a sweatshirt. But it's because that is our gift to them. There's really nothing we can give monetarily or any of that to show our appreciation for how much Gene has done for us, especially navigating us through trying to find a new senior pastor and how well that's turned out and how blessed we are. So Gene, as I said, thank you seems inadequate, but thank you. And the next sweatshirt goes to Wade Watson, because Wade has navigated us through 5 years of a capital campaign, this building, and again, thank you seems inadequate, but thank you. And last but not least, and he cheated and took his sweatshirt early, just a thank you to Joe, because being treasurer, it's a thankless job. And he has done an excellent job, again, guiding us through a precarious time as we searched for a senior pastor and tried to negotiate and make all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And his due diligence, I can't tell you how blessed we are that he is our treasurer. So Joe, you have your sweatshirt, but here's your thank you note. Okay, moving on. So in your annual report, if you turn to the page, I think it's 3 pages in, and it's 2024 SCF events and highlights. And as you can see, we have been very busy. As only our 2nd year of being in this building, and as someone had said, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So this is February, March. Love the Easter Bunny. April. Our new heated sidewalk, which I think everyone can attest is a huge improvement and a blessing. May, our first blood drives, and bringing the blood drive back to this end of Sun River, and the Red Cross is ever so grateful. We've saved over 100 lives. July, August, September, the dedication of our beautiful windows upstairs, the spaghetti feed dinner. Andy is smiling down upon us. We have been greatly blessed by the new kitchen. I guess I have to hit this twice every time, sorry. And then the great blessing of being able to welcome Callie and her entire family. I think we have to admit that having Bryce and all the children have also been a wonderful blessing. And just, I know they're not here today, but tell them that we are grateful and thank you. And then you can never forget visions. And again, just the visions of sugar plums, but several of the workshops, again, that we were able to do here at church, not only in the kitchen, but in the East Room. And what a blessing it has been to have our own space to be able to do that. And it is what has helped us be able to increase what we be able to give to South Deschutes County by the numbers we have, because we're able to increase our volume. And just the blessing that all of you are to Visions of Sugar Plums. And I just want to say a big thank you to Rhonda and Diana, and have them stand up. And you can never leave. And then here, going into December, and just the many blessings that Advent, Christmas Eve was for this community. It was just a wonderful, wonderful celebration of the birth of Christ. I'm pointing the wrong way, sorry. And then this is, you had all seen this in the newsletter in November. And just the thank you to you, the congregation of SCF, and the amount of giving that this congregation does is absolutely amazing. And if you add all of these numbers up in 2024, and I know December brought in a little bit more, but we as a congregation gave $151,000 to these various ministries.
Don't forget the blood, sweat, and tears.
That's right, that's right.
This way, this way.
Point it this way.
Oh, I'm sorry, I keep pointing at the screen. Yes, well, there's many other donations, but this is just captured it. Okay, that's.
Gotta see what we've got here. Oh, Sally. Come, Sally. Oh, before Sally does this, I'd like to thank the people that helped with this presentation for the slideshow. It was Cindy and Mark McConnell and Randy Heiss. And Wade Watson.
Well, I'm afraid I don't have any T-shirts or thank you notes or anything to give you, but what I do have to give you is something very important, and that's a list of the people who are willing to help this congregation this coming year. So we've got nominations for the managing board, 3-year terms, Mark McConnell, Barb, you can't get out of it, and Dave Drescher. And Terry Jaden is continuing with a 1-year term to fulfill a prior vacancy. The Endowment Board of Trustees, 3-year nominations for Carol Thomas, Susan Kenny, and Mike Goki. And Steve Warner is going to stand for a 2-year term to fulfill a vacancy. We've got every member of the nominating committee on here because we found that all of us were timing out at the same time. So we've realigned it and given some people the break of only doing a 1 year. Jean Kruger we put on the hook for 3 full years as Chris Hamilton. Linda Salzer and I both have 2 years left in our terms, and Bob Sherman and Sue Husby have agreed to 1-year terms. So that is our slate of nominees.
Thank you, Sally. At this time, I'd like to allow any nominations from the floor. If anyone has, and please, before you nominate someone, have that person's approval to be nominated. Do I see any nominations from the floor? I do not. So, on that basis, I would like to hear a nomination from the floor for, a motion from the floor to nominate the slate that is currently on the slide. I have Wade moving, and I have Linda as doing a second. That's Linda Smith. Wade Watson and Linda Smith. Okay, any discussion or questions concerning the nominees? If not, raising of hands for those that say yes to this nomination. Okay, thank you. We have certainly a majority. Is there anyone that would like to say no to the nominations? Thus it's unanimous for the minutes. Okay, thank you for that vote. We're on to capital campaign updates by Wade Watson.
So I thought it'd be useful to start out, since we started this process, since we started this process a long time ago, to just refresh our memories as to why we started this and what were our objectives. So I think it was late 20 or early 21 when we recognized that the Catholic Church was not going to renew our lease. So being homeless was not a good prospect, and so the first objective obviously was to have a home that we could count on. Secondly, this used to be a gymnasium and a rock climbing room, obviously not suitable for worship services, so that objective was to create a space that actually functioned as a church. Protecting the investment. We're all making a major investment in this building. I'll give you an example of what protecting the investment means. If you've never been around to the backside of the church, when we purchased the church, we knew that that wall of the building had been ignored for many years, probably 15 or more, with no paint or any other services. So we need to replace the siding on that wall. That's what protecting the investment means to me, at least. And then lastly, minimize future major repairs, recognizing that our budget is tight, our operating budget is tight. We want to try to avoid having major expenses that are going to be a real significant hit to the operating budget. So an example of that is when we purchased the building, it had 8 furnaces and 8 air conditioning units, all of which were vintage 2005. So beyond what any HVAC professional would say is the projected life for that kind of equipment. So we started, first we removed 2 of the units, so we're down to 14. And then we started replacing those units again so that we could avoid those $10,000 type expenses that might come up in the future. So that's what minimizing future major repairs means. Those were the objectives. Oops, they got 2. So we're finally at the point where we have 1 more year to go this year. This graph just demonstrates the activities that have occurred in blue. As you can see, we've got about 10% of the work and the funding that still needs to occur. So a lot of success there. Obviously 2022 was the big bar because that's when we had to do the major things that allowed us to start using the building. So this is just a summary up through the end of '24 of the income that we've received, predominantly from donations, and then expenditures. I'm not going to go through and explain each of those, but probably it'd be worthy or worthwhile to mention that the pre-purchase miscellaneous, the 140,000 roughly, almost half of that was obtaining the entitlements that were necessary for us to break this piece of property away from the total parcel. There were a lot of consultants that were required to do that, and also the fees, the permitting fees and things like that. One of the other major expenses was the realtor's fee. We engaged a realtor to participate in the negotiations with the previous owners. So it looks like a big number, but you know, it does represent some activity that had to be done. So our 2025 program, we originally borrowed $176,000 from the reserve fund as seed money for us to be able to get started with the projects, the various projects. We were able to repay 100,000 of that 176 this year, and the intent is to repay the additional 76,000 in 2025. Other things, I mentioned the furnaces previously. We have accomplished 9, and we have 4 more to go, so that'll be done this year. And then the siding on the south wall I also mentioned. And then there, as money, or if money is available, if the donations come in as expected, we'll be able to take care of a few other things as well. Oops. There we go. So obviously, the amount of money that has been spent, raised and spent, is huge for a small congregation like this. It's, well, it exceeds any of the estimates that Joe Usanica and I had when we started this process. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your continued generosity. I would only ask that, remember that we are not done yet. We've still got a few serious things that need to be done. And both of the items that I mentioned on that slide really should be done in the early summer. So if it's at all possible for you to provide your contribution earlier in the year rather than later in the year, that would be exceedingly helpful. I don't want to do the siding, for example, in October. And it's best to do the air conditioning units when we don't need them. So your help in that regard would be good. Lastly, I'd like to just mention that, most of you know that I spent my career of 40 years managing projects. Projects are not done by individuals. Projects are done by teams of people. And we have been very fortunate to have really great consultants, really talented and committed contractors, committees that have assisted me as we've been trying to decide what the design should be. I think as I was reading the scriptures this morning, the one from 1 Corinthians, it says, now there are a variety of gifts, but the same Spirit. And it also says, to each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. I've been blessed to have people that have insights and talents that I don't have to assist with bringing the projects together. And so I'd like to say thank you for that. But then lastly, I think many of you probably are not aware that Dave Drescher and I are joined at the hip. Dave is responsible for buildings and grounds, and we have coordinated very closely over the course of the last 2 years to ensure that whatever we are doing from a capital point of view is consistent with long-term usage of the building. So thank you, Dave.
Well, it's been a lot of fun.
Yes, John.
Wade, when is it safe for us to say we have paid off the building, it's now ours? Is that at the end of this year?
Well, Joe, you can probably help me with how much our mortgage.
There is a slide coming as part of the financial presentation that's going to speak to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
We started out with a $900,000 mortgage, and I think it's down to around $750.
740, yes, 742.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Yes, Frank.
Well, I'm incredibly impressed with the leadership that you and others provided to provide this building to us. We could still become on our knees begging the Catholics for 45 minutes at some point on Sunday morning. And now we have this beautiful building, and we have a lot of other things that have gone with it. I just think we ought to have a standing ovation for you and the rest of your leaders.
Okay, it still works, Here's your paperwork, Wade. All righty.
Gene,
Yes.
did we finally get in place a contractual arrangement between us and the Catholic for the asphalt and for the resurfacing when necessary?
Well, actually, some of that resurfacing has already been done, including the striping of the parking lot. So not only has the agreement been done, but the actual work has been completed. Now, does it still have a lot of these bumps on it? Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, my wife mentioned that this morning as we were bouncing into the church. Though, asphalt, as we all know in this area, develops cracks, and they fill the cracks, but there's still some depressions where the cracks were. So it's a continuing project, Jared. But yes, we did get an agreement, and some of the work has been done. Okay, we are at the point where Joe Amos gets to, no, he's going the other direction. That's a problem. Oh, no, he is coming this way. I was fearful for a moment. He's got a couple of body parts that got issues here, so it takes him a little while. Here you go, Joe.
Push the right arrow.
right arrow.
On the circle.
You gotta point it at Randy. There we
Oh,
go.
yeah, there we go.
Let me get my stuff out of the way. You got 3 hands?
No, two on one foot. First of all, thanks for your time. Yes, thanks for your time, and we're going to try to simplify this if possible. And on page 7 of your handout is where the financial reports start. And it goes from page 7 to the middle of page 13. It's long, but we're going to try to make it simple. Money, or the lack of it, is simple proposition. First of all, I'd like to recognize the Finance Committee. They've done a very good job of helping to gather things and make recommendations to the Managing Board. A few of them are here. I'd like to recognize them, as well as the many of the members who also are snowbirds, who usually are not here, but they're actively working behind the scenes to make things happen. Our job is to look at the finances and make recommendations and back it up with real data. So, and because there's so many people on the Finance Committee, I think you can be rest assured that the recommendations they make are well thought out with good insights. I think there are 9 people on the Finance Committee, which is a blessing. The first thing is about 2024. The news is all good, so I'm the good news story guy, like it or not. It is great. A year ago, a day from a year ago tomorrow, we made a recommendation to you about the 2024 budget. You approved it, even though we projected a budget shortfall. We also proposed a means to balance the budget at the time. And I'm here to report that not only did we overperform and exceed expectations, we actually finished the year in the black. We did not have a budget shortfall, thanks to the many of you who either paid more than your pledged amounts or God's additional blessings that brought additional money in from elsewhere. So we're on good footing, and we should be thankful and joyful. And therefore, we have reasons to be hopeful for the future. So let's... So Pastor Carly's sermon today was very, very appropriate. I couldn't help myself. I had to pinch myself while she was saying that and say, well, it is true. What we have is more than enough. And we're used to whining and complaining, and we even look for cheese, and we don't need to do that because there is plenty, and this is evidence of it. Not only did we perform well and were able to do everything that was planned, we ended up the year with about $13,000 in surplus funds for 2024. So the news is good, and that money now goes forward into 2025 to help us meet the needs. So if anyone has any questions about that piece, let me know. So, there are 2 pages of this slide, if I can get it to work.
I'll do it, Joe.
There it is.
I'll do it.
Good. So in summary, increased income from your generous giving and reduced expenditures resulted in better than projected end-of-year financial posture. In short, like they say in business, we overperformed and we exceeded expectations. Now, maybe our expectations were low, but that's okay. God has a way of surprising us and doing better than we think we deserve. Okay? Any questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to 2025. Are we ready?
I did it.
Yes. So 2025, we knew it was going to be challenging because we are now set and ready to roll for the future. Therefore, some of the savings that we had realized over the last 2.5 years, while we're doing a transition, we now have to be ready to face that And I'm happy to report that the Finance Committee thinks that we're well poised to do that. So we're proposing an aggressive budget, yet realistic and hopeful one. It's hard to balance those three things, but I think we're there. Number one is that we have an increased number of faithful non-pledgers for SCF. That is something that has become apparent, that we, for example, for 2025, have pledgers, 83 family pledging units submitted pledges to us for 2025. In 2024, we had 80. The average pledge amount has gone up from $3,238 to $33,090. And the range of pledges, have also improved quite a bit. So people are stepping up to the need, and it's not because of our great salesmanship. It's because God moves them, to help support and get His work done. That's the way I look at it. And I think the fruit is in the pudding. So we, for 2025, are projecting an income that is more than what we had for 2024. We, of course, also have projected increased expenses. And what Rhonda is handing out is a one-page summary of the budget for 2025. And that should help simplify what you have in the annual report. So this one-page summary is a good one, and just hand them a bunch of stuff and then they can pass it down, and then we'll get there quicker. Yeah, and so let's make sure that is. Can we see? I'm trying to get this thing to move. Okay, are we there? Good. Okay. So we basically, for 2025, have a full staffing role, defined. Yes. The senior pastor, the page, the top of, right now, the 2025 budget assumes a full year of staffing for the following roles. Of course, our new senior pastor role, and Pastor Carly, as per letter of agreement. And I'm happy to say that SCF was very proactive, and we were able to achieve the guidelines, meet and even exceed the guidelines that were recommended for compensation purposes for clergy based on what both the Episcopal and the Lutherans recommend, even though Pastor Carly is a presby. But she is part of us now. And I think that guidelines were very helpful, and I'm very thankful to God that she was able to accept what we had, and so she demonstrated that what we have is enough. So that's another affirmation. We also, the savings that we got from not having to have the associate pastor role was one that we're able to use across the board to meet the other needs. For example, the music ministry leader role is one, that is the third one down, that we have planned for, and we're going to be able to achieve that, even if the amount we have to pay is different. But the Finance Committee is projecting that that is an allowance that was made for in 2024, and will be prepared to do that on a full-time basis in 2025. We also recognize that we need to continue to manage and fund the office manager role that is currently filled by John Lewis. So that is, and then we also have the part-time service role that Ryan provides to us for the sound technician role for our services. So those are the main areas that we're covering as far as personnel goes. And you will see that in your handout, it shows what percentage of our budget goes towards personnel and staffing. Can you see that? Does anyone have any question? So we actually are doing as well as is projected for most parishes or congregations. So then the outreach ministry budget is one that's I think partly explained by what Barbara had presented earlier, which is outreach is more than, just one single entity. We basically have a number of things that are funded either directly through the budget or through additional external contributions. And that is what I think Pastor Kali was talking about, which is that's enough. Okay, kid had 2 fish, I guess, and 5 loaves, and somebody else has a loaf and something else. Somebody had the water. So we basically are in a good place because overall we think that we are still able to perform these commitments of outreach whilst trying to also meet the other needs of the congregation, including this building. I think one thing that the Finance Committee recognizes is that having this building is not a burden unless you choose to make it one. It's actually a blessing. That is, and I know that some people think that maybe it's because we have the building that we're having to struggle financial-wise. That is not so. The data does not support that, and I think that your external and generous contribution towards the capital campaign also, I think demonstrates that. So I just want to give that because that is the way the Finance Committee views it. It's a blessing and not an albatross around our neck. So as far as the budget goes,
I changed it. I changed it.
You did, good, thank you.
And it doesn't seem to be working.
Yes, so this is to address the question, and I'll come back to talk about the budget if need be. But for right now, John Salter asked the question about the finance of this building. And I think it's about time we brought you up to speed on where we stand. This building was purchased at the cost of about $1.25 million. And at the time, we had a down payment of $350,000 for it, and that was paid from the pledges that were raised both in 2021 and 2022. We had a 25-year mortgage loan that we took out through the ELCA Mission Investment Fund, and the rates were favorable comparatively. It was 3.875%, and we took out $900,000 loan. And that requires for us to pay $4,689 every month, starting June 1 of 2022. The original amortization schedule, most of us have been homeowners at one time or the other, or even currently, and you know that when you take out a loan on a home, you pay it brick by brick or siding by siding, and in our case, it was going to cost us $1.367 million on $400,000, dollar loan. That's a lot to pay. $900,000 loan, and that's a lot of interest to pay. So the Finance Committee has been working with, the capital campaign and the managing board to say, how can we reduce that burden? And the thought was that we therefore, once we got about $100,000, back in the loan repayment from the capital campaign, it was recommended and executed that that money be used to reduce the debt on the building. Because that was done, that $100,000 payment basically reduced the life of the loan by almost 4 years and saved us about $82,000 in interest, long-term interest. That's a lot. And therefore, the new total principal and interest payments is now projected to be only $1,040,000 instead of $1,467,000 we had at the beginning. And at the current interest rate, that means that we're going to be able to reduce, the amount of time it takes, to pay off this mortgage on this home, by 2043 rather than 2047, if you're counting. And so it's a good thing. However, our interest rate is one that is potentially adjustable. It's an adjustable rate mortgage loan. It's currently at 3.875 and is due for its first renewal review on April 1, 2027. So we have additional 2 years and 3 months or so to try to see if we could reduce that burden so that when the next review takes place, the first review takes place, and it's not at a very favorable rate, at least we would not have to increase, okay, the burden, okay, on us. So that's the incentive to do more. Yes.
Is there a maximum increase in that renegotiation of the?
No, I say most things in life, nothing is guaranteed in life. But because we're also dealing with a Christian organization, you would think that they would not do to us what is normally done in the secular world. So that's only a hope. No, that's the way it is. Yes, it is what it is. But they would want us to keep. They would want us. There's no cap. Okay, they would want us to continue the loan anyway. So it's also in their interest. But the good news is that they're not the only people who have money and who lend money. We can go and look elsewhere, just like we all do. So that is not much of a worry at this point in time. So does that answer your question, John, about where we stand?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. The short-term approach, on the mortgage is that we are required to pay the same monthly payment that we've been making until the first renewal date happens. However, anytime we make any additional payment on the principal, is going to reduce the overall interest and reduce the life of the loan. Therefore, we are hopeful, the Finance Committee is hopeful, that if the capital campaign gets the promised money that they're expecting, and they do their projects, and they repay the $76,000, on the original loan to the capital campaign, that some of that money may be available to be used to pay down the principal on the debt. So if no one has any question on this, I would like to go back then and see if you have any questions on the 2025 budget specific and the impact of this on that, and then I will close. Any questions on the mortgage? Are you a bit more comfortable now about where we are? God is good, and we have reason to be thankful and hopeful. Okay? I wish I had it this good when I was growing up and I needed to have a loan. It wasn't this good, and I made it. So we have reason to be hopeful. Thankful. Concerning the 2025 budget, the one difficult decision that, one of many, that the Finance Committee had, and the recommendation that was made to the Managing Board was how do we balance the overall needs, okay, for personnel costs, organizational costs, music ministry costs, outreach, and the like. And I think that what we recommended that was accepted and approved by the Managing Board is not only balanced, but I think reasonably achievable. So we use what we call a SMART goal approach, which is a need to be specific, measurable, actionable, that you can actually do it, realistic and timely. So that is what we used as a basis, and we thank you for your generous giving, because that has allowed our job to be a little bit easier in presenting a budget that we think is doable. So our plan for 2025, our expectation is to basically use possibly no more than half of the payback from the capital campaign loan to produce a balanced budget. Right now, we are projecting a budget shortfall of about $51,000 for 2025. But because God is so good, and you all have been very good at contributing to the capital campaign. We don't have to go externally to look for money to balance the budget. With the $13,000 surplus we're carrying over from 2024 into 2025, coupled with about half of the payback from the capital campaign, we're going to have a balanced budget in 2025, and we're not counting on new people just walking in and just throwing money at us, even though that may happen. That is the faith income piece. That is why in 2024 we ended up in the positive, because that happened. And there's no way to predict that, but what is controllable by us is what we've presented as a budget. Thank you for your time, and I'll entertain any other questions with respect to the budget. Yes.
Under expenses, it says facility expenses, and it says operations and mortgage interest. Does operations include maintenance?
Yes. And frankly, Mr. David Drescher, along with his small gang of Bob and so forth, they do an excellent job on the building operations and maintenance. It is barely more than what I pay for my own house, and I think they do a fantastic job with that, and frankly, it's reasonable, and that's why we thought it was necessary to show you the percentage of where the money goes on the budget. The answer is yes. Yes.
Without sowing fear and concern too far in advance, should we be alert to the fact that the 2025 budget has been balanced by two factors that may not exist in 2026, which is, number one, the carryover from a prior year, and number two, the payback of a capital campaign loan that won't be there in 2026?
The answer is yes, but that is why faith is a key component of being a Christian. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, just two, I just would like to add.
Right.
Just would like to add two things. So Patty, if you take $56,000 out, the facility expense on the summary sheet, because Patty's question was about, so $56,000 is principal and interest out of that amount, and then that's where you get then the operations.
Yep. And frankly, that is just barely more than what we were paying. What we were paying at Holy Trinity was about $37,000 to be able to use that facility, and that wasn't all inclusive either. So we're not that, bad and worse off just because we have the building. That's why I think it'd be nice for us to appreciate what we have instead of considering it as an albatross, because it is not. Any other questions regarding the proposal? And I think we have reason to be joyful. I'd like to see us act like most of the people who go to sports games, who are excited. Even when the team is behind, they still are hopeful. And we could exhibit some of that, okay? Thank you.
Kind of glad he didn't bring up the Ohio State-Oregon game. Okay, we're back up to the agenda. And next item on the agenda is the motion and voting for the approval of the 2025 budget. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have John making the motion.
Second.
Salzer? Yes, correct. And Monica doing the second. Any discussion concerning? Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, there's another contribution to making the budget balance, and that's a $20,000 reduction in the allocation to UPCAP this year. That would have been very, very discerning, except for the fact that a very large donation came in at the very end of the year. UPCAP will be able to function at the same level as last year for 2025. There is a concern for future years, however.
Thank you, Doug. Well said. Any other discussion? Joe?
Just to help Doug, yes, that is why God is good. God continues to surprise us because we keep complaining about what we don't have. The news that Doug just shared is the fact that the budget was very challenging, for 2025. But unbeknownst to us, a local family on their own recognized SCF and the work we do, and they recommended a grant, through a charitable organization to give $55,000 to SCF. We just received that confirmation of a grant of $55,000 dedicated specifically for the use of outreach and scholarship fund. And that is not in our budget. So that is one of the reasons why some of us choose to be hopeful. And it's a choice. It's a choice. We did not have to apply for it. We didn't have to beg for it. We didn't earn it, but it came our way. And that addresses partly, the concern. That was not a consideration when the budget was put in, but God has a way of taking care of our needs, yet He's aware of our ignorance in asking. So, thank you.
As Joe would say, God is good. Jane?
I'd like to add something to that, which I think is really, really important to all of us as congregants here. That gift is not from someone who is a regular, to the best of my knowledge, from my information, is not someone who regularly attends, but someone who is aware of the work that Sun River Christian Fellowship does in our community. The gift was given half to local scholarships and half to local outreach and care and share. That is what the community sees in our faces at work. And it's your faces. And I want to thank all of you.
Excellent comments. Any other further discussion before we vote? I see none, so all in favor of approving the 2025 budget, please raise your hand. Those that are in opposition to the budget? Again, unanimous, Joan. The amount of work. Cindy, you had something to say?
I think it'd be a really great idea if, can you all hear me? If I change your voice.
You won't go in the recording.
I think it'd be a really great idea if as many of us as possible bought the t-shirts and sweatshirts, because I feel like when I'm out in the community doing whatever I'm doing, I'm looking around and I say, oh my gosh, almost everybody that's here volunteering is someone from our church, or there's at least a good representation. And I think, following what Jane said, that's how people, I've had so many people in the short time we've been here say to me, oh, I know about that church. And I think the more that we do to show who we are, which is all of the things that we do in the community, and to let people know that we are there. So I just think everyone should get a shirt. That's my, or a sweatshirt or whatever.
So again, now we have the sweatshirt, t-shirt, aficionado.
Okay. The sweatshirts, they're $50 a piece. And there's a really nice looking black t-shirt with this on it for 20 bucks. If you're really excited about ordering something today, write your name and number on the back of the program, and we must try to get the size correct. This is an extra large. It fits me okay. Dave Long is a little tight.
Barb, what is yours? Mine's a medium. Mine's a women's medium.
Yeah. And Joan's got a small on.
Have they been washed yet?
No.
Unisex.
Are the t-shirts short or long sleeve?
T-shirt's short sleeve.
There might be the option for long sleeve, is there?
Sure.
I don't know.
We can figure something out. So, name, number, try to pick a size, and I can make a bulk order and get them here within a couple of weeks, maybe.
Tom, I'll make this easier because we'll just get a bunch of programs with sizes. If you would like a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, come see me. I will take down your number and your size.
Get their credit card too.
And then I'm giving it to Tom.
Job reduced.
So the sweatshirt, t-shirt discussion got in the way of our vote. But that's okay. That's okay. Well, I guess we did vote. Yes, we did. All right. I want to again extend my appreciation personally for since 2019 to be involved with the managing board. It's been a good time. It's been a time-consuming time. But what I'd like to do is have another standing of all the people in the room that have not only now, but previously served on the managing board. Please stand up. Very good. And there's always the opportunity for those of you that didn't stand up to volunteer in the future. I have another bit of good news. I was informed today that as of the last Monday in January through the last Monday in May, we have a temporary music ministry coordinator who will assist us in the choir direction. Her name is Kathy Bullock, AKA Mom, Callie's mom. So we will start practicing, those of you in the choir, first week of February. May adjust the day and time of practice, but we will again have choir available starting in February through May, which is the end of our normal choir season anyway. And then we continue by ad. We have currently an ad in the Ben Bulletin. There will be an ad in the February Sun River Scene, compliments of Mark McConnell and Cindy McConnell. And we continue to hope in the future have a permanent person for that position. But until that time, please welcome Kathy when she assists us in our music ministry. Okay, I think we are at other business from the floor, should there be any. Yes, Roy?
I'm a retired person speaking to a lot of retired people. And there's a group of retired people that I want to remember. And that is in the 15 months between Nancy and Callie. We had retired clergy, except for one, Erica's full-time. But we had a fabulous group of people. Our elder statesman is Frank Brocker. He's here. Chuck Christopher was in this morning. Maybe.
Roy Green?
Maybe. Just a moment. Maybe it's just me, but one of the issues retired people have is the fear of being forgotten. When you're not in your role and you think you have no power left, then you begin to feel, unless you get busy, you begin to feel forgotten. So lest these people, Frank Brocker, Chuck Christopher, Marianne Gard, Mark Brocker, Erica Spate, Rob Pearson, and myself, lest we be forgotten. Frank is really good about pointing out things we ought to be grateful for, and I just want to honor these retired clergy who took care of us.
If I can add to that, the person who was responsible for coordinating that entire endeavor is the gentleman that was just up here. Thank you, Roy. I thought I saw another hand. Oh, Liz.
I'm very loud.
Yeah, we know you're very loud, but you're going to get a mic anyway.
You won't be heard on the recording.
Okay, and that's important, yeah. Anyway, I want, for those of you who have been really supportive of the art gallery, the Nancy McGrath Green Gallery, I thank you. I screwed up last week by telling the artist to come later than I should have, and church was so fast. So anyway, but I just wanted to make a request. The artists who volunteer their artwork for these shows generously, they try to come to this reception to be by their art and meet the church, the congregants of our church. So if you could all try to be as supportive as you can at these 4 times a year receptions and stay after church and meet and greet them, it would be appreciated by the artists and by myself and the rest of my committee for the art gallery. So those of you who do stay, thank you. And those of you who haven't had the pleasure of staying, please do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Cindy says, make it short. We have a couple people in here, Mitzi's here somewhere. Where's Mitzi? Mitzi and Sharon. They've kept our music going. Oh, and Gina too.
And Donna. Okay, I thought I saw one more hand. Did I see one more hand? Oh, good, no more hands. All right. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Doug has the motion. Randy has the second. All in favor? Aye. I can assume that's unanimous. Thank you. See you upstairs for lunch.